Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Robert Syfert. Thanks for being on the show, Robert.
Absolutely, a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Robert is an innovator in real estate investment industry who creates software, tools, and services that enable real estate investors to do things better and faster, and is the founder of Investor PO, Property List Manager, and USA Portfolio Real Estate, and visionary for realestateinvestor.com. With well over a decade of experience in the industry, he has sold and managed hundreds of investment properties and has built 3 successful startups from the ground up. He's passionate about being part of the solution and finding answers to the problems that hold real estate investors back from growing and scaling their businesses. He's a philanthropist. I can't speak this morning. Sorry. And he gives back to the industry through his mentorship program and business coaching services. So, Robert and I were talking before the show, and I tell you, he has a background in sales, and he has some skills that, man, anybody in the real estate business needs to know how to do. And some of that's even, just like our follow-up process. And if you're in the syndication business, if you don't have a follow-up process, you're not planning to raise much capital from investors. And so I'm looking forward to getting into this and him helping us to think through how he's built relationships for the long term, and even develop automations to help with that. It's so important. We cannot keep up with all this just by ourselves, most likely, if you're scaling, if you're really growing your business. So, Robert, welcome to the show. Grateful to have met you, and get us started, who you are, what you do, and then let's dive into how we can help the listeners create that automation so they can scale and follow up so they can build those relationships that are so crucial.
Yeah, thanks again, Whitney. This is a pleasure coming on the show. Like you said, Robert Syfert. I originally from the Midwest, born and raised, lived there my whole life. Started my whole real estate empire back then, quite a few years ago now. Living in Tampa, Florida, basically living my vacation life that I enjoy. And all of it's piggybacked off of just the things that I took from sales coming into real estate and turning my business into focusing on the relationship, more than tripled our business. And then it opened the door to all the startups that occurred over the last few years, just to help others gain that level of ability to scale. Because the reality is, this is all a relationship business. For me, anything in sales is relationship driven. And the more you focus on the relationship, the better. Right? And relationships, there's only so many, as you kind of alluded to me, there's only so many you can personally manage and truly stay in touch with. So that's where automation and some other things you can do come into play to really just help foster that relationship where you may be limited in time and ability to just do that on a daily and weekly basis.
No, that's awesome. And I love how you just said focusing on relationships more than tripled your business. And I would just like the listener to think about that for a minute. I'm focusing on relationships, and I agree completely. It doesn't matter if you're talking about brokers, you're talking about investors, or whoever in the business, property management teams. Man, those relationships have been crucial in so many aspects of our business. And so let's get started. How have you done that, Robert? Let's get into the automation and just, how you've created the follow-up system to help you do that better and to scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, I felt maybe I had an advantage coming in, right? I come from a sales background. So I spent many years where follow-up is king, right? And it's just, that's it. And I actually didn't fully apply it to real estate in the beginning because I was so focused on transactions. I got to buy another house. I got to go find another person to buy the house from me right after I'm done with it. And so I focused on that. Once we took a step back and said, wait a minute, this is no different than any other sale. And I came from the finance industry. We should be following up and cultivating these relationships with the deals we're not doing. We shifted everything and we knew we had to put some automation into it because that's too much when you have thousands of leads to be able to do that, especially even hundreds. So when we made that shift, we started to say, okay, take a step back. What is it that I want to do with this person? Not their property, not buying or selling, right? And how would I want to continue to communicate with them until the transaction is done? So you have to take that step back first, because like you said, right, it could be agents that you're dealing with or brokers. It could be lenders that you're keeping a relationship with in the case of the next syndication that's coming up, right? Or property management related, and whether that's tenants or contractors or et cetera. And so you take a step back and say, how would I personally want to continue to foster a relationship with that person? Right? What would I say? What would I do if I was just trying to touch base, right? So think of it from that perspective, because that's the minimum. How you build a relationship is touch base, let a person know you're still thinking about them. And whatever the transactional side of that relationship might be, what is that, right? From there, what you need to do on a minimum level, no automation, right? But I'll show you how to automate this with no tool but a Google Calendar, or whatever calendar you choose probably has similar attributes, right? And so I assume you have their email and their phone number, most likely. That's the first step in the relationship. If you have their home address or business address, even better, because I'm going to give you a little trick there that I really took away from the book Giftology, in the thought process of just getting.
What's the name of the book?
It's Giftology. I think it's John Rulin wrote a good book. And he doesn't talk about this specifically, but having the address allows you to send gifts, right? And so I don't take it to that level with automation yet. Now that I say that out loud, that's a good idea. But we do take it to the level of taking the same concept and just physically having something from you adds to the relationship, and you've already separated yourself, right? So it's another level. So number one, set yourself in a calendar a reminder. I would recommend, depending on the relationship, right? Maybe you don't need to contact the person. If it's an aggressive thing like a seller, you're probably going to contact them aggressively when they first reach out to you, because you're trying to get a transaction going with them. And then it's going to pitter patter out over time, right? Maybe a week apart, 2 weeks apart, 30 days apart. First month is generally more aggressive. After that, it's less aggressive. Other relationships like buyer relationships or lenders, I would highly recommend figuring out how often you would normally want to reach out to this person. Is it every other week? Is it once every few weeks? Right? And now if that's the case, then you can either one, set a reminder in your calendar, and you can put in a list of names, right? I would recommend like a time block first thing in the morning, just to remind you for the day, hey, follow-ups, and list out the names you want to follow up with. 2 weeks from now, here's a list of follow-up. Or you could have a weekly schedule, depending on how many you have, right? Maybe every Thursday or every Friday follow-up day, and list out all the people you're going to follow up with that day, right? If you have a ton of people, maybe it's like 20 people every week. Over the course of the month, you've hit 100 people or so, right? Depending on that number, and you can see where automation can come into this when you start to get a lot of people. So if you do this on that basis, though, on those days, this is simply sending a quick email. Hey, was just thinking about you. Wanted to touch base and see how you're doing. How's family life going? How things are going? How are you? Are you still looking out for more syndications? Have you heard anything that's coming up that I might be interested in? I'm working on some stuff that might be interesting to you, right? An email, you could be a little bit longer, but I would still, at the point is just building the relationship. Then to take it to the next level, because everyone does email and most people don't open emails today. So you still have, 20, 30%. And if it's relationship driven, this is where we tripled our open rates and click rates, was just being very, very thoughtful of what our emails were going to say. To add to that, though, especially today and over the years, we have found the next two to be the biggest ones, and that's text messaging. Send them a quick text message. Now there you can be a lot shorter, but still fostering a relationship, right? Like, what would you want to say to that person on a regular basis? So you're just touching base, right? Engaging, could be an engagement question to get them to answer. So there's a response and some kind of like, oh, cool, we both text back and forth. Text gets opened highly today and most people respond. And usually you're getting that person versus an assistant or someone else that might be involved in the email. If you want to take it to the next level, but don't have to actually call somebody, you can get a system. Don't even need ours for this. You can go get a system called Sly Broadcast. And so Sly Broadcast is a ringless voicemail delivery system. And so what that means is it has technology that you can have an app right on your phone. You can record a voicemail message as if you got a hold of someone's voicemail when you called them, say what it is you want to say, and then hit send, and it actually goes directly into their inbox. So they actually look like they got a voicemail. Your number shows up as a missed call. They never got a phone call though. The technology is kind of cool in how it works. And so the cool thing about that and taking it to the next level is they heard your personal voice, right? What's better in a relationship, right? Email's great, text message is great, it's words. Your physical voice, when you hear someone's voice, it's more meaningful to you, right? So you could, again, just using it to touch base. Now, if there's a transactional side to that, you can add in a piece of that, right, to that thing. But now they feel like, man, this guy called me, he texted me, he sent me an email, he really cares about me, right? And so if you do that on a regular basis, you are fostering a relationship. You don't have to talk about a deal. You could just talk about, hey, how are you doing? How's life? Done anything interesting in the last couple of weeks? Done anything interesting since the last time we talked to each other? That's going to foster a relationship. And if you're really good with this, you have a place where you're keeping and storing notes related to that relationship. So when they do communicate with you, you have more information to talk about when you're really talking to them. Now, the piece where I said about the giftology, if you have their physical address, you could also send them a simple thank you card. I recommend whenever you do a transaction, drop them a piece of mail. Now, gifts are great in that area, of course. That is a little harder to automate because it's date specific, something just happened. But you could automate something as simple as a thank you card or something in your sequence that sends them a picture about what's going on in your life with a little message. Hey, just wanted to send you this. Thought it might be cool for you to see what I do in my personal life, right? Anything that helps foster that relationship. And physical mail is cool because just like the voice, it's a real personal touch. People could touch and feel it. So it's a little bit different than just some text that's gone in a week or two, which is why I recommend every couple of weeks or at least at a minimum once a month, no matter what that relationship is, following up. So that now using your Google Calendar would allow you to create a reminder for you to do that. Now at realestateinvestor.com and the previous other startups that all rolled into this, where that was that exactly what I just said, we built to do to all of our sellers, all of our agents, all of our contractors, all of our buyers, every relationship that we had that touched our business, we did. Then we tripled the real estate business with massive growth. It's what allowed me to move to Tampa, Florida and run my business virtually. And we were going to expand. And then we started up software because we realized, everyone in real estate's not doing this. And there's no tool to do it, right? Other than some people got an email system. Some people figured out this thing about text when it came out, but no one did all of it. And so we created our touch platform, which automates all of that. Right? It literally automates email, text message, ringless voicemail drops, and the postcard sequences, all built out different for every relationship, different for a couple different stages that you could be at in that relationship, and then a place to organize all the notes, thoughts, and communication with that person. So it helps keep you organized. Now that's important. Like I said, you don't need something like that if you've got, let's say 100 or less people. If it's 100 or less people and you are fine with taking the manual process, you could do 20 of those a week, 25 of those a week, and it won't take you long to shoot through all those. You could send a similar message if it's a similar type of person, just to stay engaged and build a relationship. Now, when you get way beyond that in the level of people, that's a little harder to organize, and it would make sense to have something besides, a Google Sheet or a doc that can keep track of all of that.
Robert, it's exciting. Like I'm just grateful that you just went through all that because I feel like the follow-up is so important. When I first started networking, when I first committed to the syndication business, I was going to every conference. Flying all over the country for a couple of years, just as hard as I could go, meeting as many people as possible. And I can tell the listener right now, the most important thing is the follow-up, because most people, majority are not going to. Those business cards are lost, by that night for a lot of people, much less by over the next few days or week. And so, you have to have a process. And I quickly developed a process, and mine was very manual like this. However, I was not doing texts and the ringless voicemail and so those things. It was just through email or even a phone call, encouraging people for a phone call and trying to follow up that way. And initially that was kind of it. I didn't have a way to keep doing it. We didn't have the systems we have now. But so I just like how it can be that simple, for the listener right now. If you're growing your investor base, there you go. Robert just laid it out for you. If you just did what he said, very quickly you're going to grow faster than majority of your competitors, that are at the same level, or at the same stage in this business. But so Robert, let's move past that just a little bit. Let's say, okay, it's very possible now, we'll have 150 investors in a deal, thousands of investors on our investor base. Obviously it's impossible for me to send that many text messages, follow up with, personally with that many investors. How do we automate that a little bit after we've had some scale? Can you give us some tips on, I want it to be genuine, right? I do take notes and I do remember a lot of them, believe it or not. But still, in following up with that many, it's like, well, wait a minute, for it to be personalized anyway, what suggestions do you have?
Yeah, this is where automation really comes into key, right? Because once it gets to a certain level, it is kind of unmanageable. And I have one of those memories too, where I just happen to remember a lot of details. Sometimes I wish I didn't remember all the details I do, but it's good in relationships, right? Because no, I remember this guy, this happened, this conversation we had was about this thing, right? But at some point that gets beyond that, where you still may trigger your memory when you meet a person or their name pops up and you're like, okay, I remember, or a note that you wrote down. So I love being able to have it organized. And it's actually this exact reason, and regardless of real estate, is we realized, because of my background in sales, that this is anywhere that you sell anything. The relationship is the focus. And if you focus on that, money always comes. So that's one thing. And in that, the automation, we created so we have, our platform is a complete CRM that has this as a component of it for real estate investors buying and selling houses. From that, we realized, wow, there's a massive need that even if you're just getting started in real estate at the lowest level, you've never even done a deal and you just need to get into it. Well, the number one thing we know they're going to need is they need to track everything they're doing. But more importantly, they've got to keep an organized place and automate the follow-up. Follow-up's the most lacking thing. And there's Harvard studies, Google studies, tons of sales studies that would say most relationships or transactions don't even happen until past the 10th time that you've touched that person, whether it's text, email, call, piece of mail, right? So that makes it that much more important. Most things you will ever do in your business, sales related wise, aren't going to happen the first time you meet somebody, right? You lost the business card, you forgot about the conversation. But if you could foster that or put them into a system that fostered and catered the relationship until they were ready to go further in your relationship, and then you got a relationship that you need to keep ongoing, that is where automation comes in. And so I don't know how to there's no other system I'm aware of that does it as much as we do. So we created a light version of our software that does all of that, right? That's its whole focus. It's not related to what kind of properties you're doing, because we take that out of that system. That system is nothing more than a contact and lead management system with automated follow-up for both types of relationships. So a contact meaning, yeah, I've never done anything with this person, but we made contact. I got the business card at the network meeting. They called me once. I don't really know them, but we're in contact. And I think they could turn into what we call a lead, right? Which is someone that I could do business with. So at the contact level, that relationship is a little different. The way you communicate would be different. So what you would say to that person would be different than someone you've done a syndication deal with already in your guys' example, right? So in the contact level, you could write out, here's my text messages, here's my emails, here's my voicemails I would leave. They could be similar in nature, right? Because again, if they're only hearing it like once a month, they don't even remember what you said a month ago. But over time, they consistently, man, I'm always in contact with Whitney. Whitney is always checking on me, all right? And so that automation, it needs to happen. Automation is going to allow that to happen and keep it personalized, because now you've written out what you would write to all of them. And then when they respond, if you get an instant notification on your phone to say, hey, they just responded and hear what they said, then you can take your notes and personalize it even further, right? Because now they responded and you can have a real conversation. But getting the conversation started if they're ready, because here's the thing with automation, you may send them a message every month. It may be 3 months before they reply to one of those. And that's okay, because you reached out. Once they reach back out, that's when your notes come important and you want to foster the relationship further. And then in a perfect world, which we do with our touch platform, the light version, is once there's someone you're doing business with, you're going to talk to them different. You have a little deeper relationship. You're going to say things a little bit differently. The only exercise you have in doing it automation is writing out what you would say and how often you would want to say it if you were engaging that relationship anyway. So if you think about your follow-up, you then can put it into a system that can just send that for you. And so then it becomes automated. That allows you to you could have 1,000 messages go out today. I could be on a beach, right? And if they reply, which will be way less than 1,000 people won't reply, right? But the ones that do, you can see, oh, that's not something that needs my reply back. They were just thanking me. Now, if they said something, I would take that the next step. Like, oh yeah, I'm doing X. Oh, that's amazing. So great. I remember the last time, and I would be checking. I remember the last time you told me you did X, Y, Z. How did that happen? Right. But the automation is just getting the relationship and the conversation started. And again, there are other platforms like I recommended. One little piece, I would get Slide Broadcast. The rest can be done. The texting can be done from your phone. The email can be done from your phone. And if you download the Slide Broadcast app, I think it's free. Other than once you send messages, like a couple pennies to send a message. Those are things that you can do that aren't automated, but they at least help you get started. And then as you build up your database, definitely I would recommend automating it with something like our Touchlight.
Incredible value right there, Robert. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're going to pivot just a little bit to a few final questions, but I hope the listeners paid attention and taken notes, because Robert has just told you how to triple your business ultimately by following up and automating it. So that way it's for sure getting done. And you're not just getting bogged down by, sending the follow-up messages, but helping to foster those relationships. So Robert, what's a way that you prepare for a downturn?
So we're putting a lot of cash to the side. We've been preparing for a downturn because we really think this has just been pushed off with all the forbearances and things going on, and that we're just waiting for it to come. So two things. One, setting aside and preparing for the ability to buy more things when they come cheaper. But at the same time, maybe different than a lot of people, we've actually doubled down on marketing. And the reason is that when all of this negative stuff happened, a lot of people got scared and started pulling their money out of marketing. Well, what I know in business, or what I understand in business, is the day you stop marketing is the day your business goes under. Because that's relationships with people even knowing what you do. So we assumed, and rightfully so, we could see it in our lead volume, that if we double down on marketing, we're taking up, I love a guy we interviewed said, I want to take up the mental space that they have. So I want to be even more in front of these people. So when they do have a problem or they do have something that needs to be solved, they're going to think of me, because now they see all my marketing because most of my competition went away. So those are our two things. Getting your cash ready and doubling down on marketing to get those people with you and kind of take up mental space across the people you want to do business with, so they know you instead of someone else that's looking for the same thing.
Robert, I believe anyone that's successful in business and in real estate must have a high level of self-discipline. How have you gained such a high level of self-discipline?
Yeah, I've continued to play with this one, right? This is I'll ebb and flow, I think, into what works. The biggest thing that helped me take this to a whole nother level, I did a challenge called 75 Hard. And I actually did it twice this year. And that's its whole purpose is to develop grit, perseverance. It's a very disciplined, you have to do 5 things every day for 75 days or you fail and have to start over. A guy named Andy Frisella runs multiple 9-figure companies, started it. And after I did it the first time, I'm like, oh, I can see where I thought I had great self-discipline and I was lacking in not doing a whole bunch of stuff. That's why I actually did it a second time this year, just to double down on it. So it's my morning routine, starting the morning right.
Tell me the name of that again.
75 Hard.
Nice.
You can do 75.
Awesome.
If you just Google that, and millions will come up.
What's a daily habit, or maybe one of those, or a couple of them that you're very disciplined about that's helped you achieve success?
Yeah, my biggest one is the way I start my day. When I wake up, I don't look at my phone. So that's number one. A lot of people, I used to jump up, look at social media, look at my email. I don't. My ringer's completely off. And so I wake up and I go into a routine. Generally speaking, it's going to be some combination of, I love reading in the morning. It's one of my favorite things to do and gets my mind going in the right way. And I love some form of exercise. Like generally speaking, in the morning, I like to just go for a walk. So usually I start my morning, I'll jump out of bed, go for a walk in the morning, and then I'll come home and read. That's usually the way I start most of my days. And I'll probably spend a couple hours doing that. Then I look at my phone and see if there's anything that needs my attention. But I've already set the mind frame to allow me to accomplish what I want. And then even once I've checked that, it's usually a quick thing. And then I go into, I love and learned what's the one thing that's going to help push my business forward that I can do today? And I want to knock it out as early as possible.
Awesome. That's some great value right there. Robert, what's a way that you've recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
The biggest is the automation. It really is just finding, we're actually working right now. It's already like eliminating some overhead and improving some things by finding other areas where, man, can't we automate that? Isn't there a way to like make our software plug in that hole right there? And it could take 3 less people to do that job. So continuing to look for ways and things that are repetitive that could just be automated.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
Ooh, when you said right now, that threw a little monkey wrench. It was events, which is a little bit more troublesome today. I still think meeting the right people for me is some sort of events, even if it's attending them virtually today. Some have put on live events, and if you're okay with traveling and going to live events, I don't think there's, for me, especially because it's the relationship, I don't think there's anything better than the live event, being able to meet someone in person.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Relationships, 100%. Putting people first.
How do you like to give back?
Many, many, many ways. I love to donate to things that I'm very focused on kids. So I donate to several charities that are related to helping kids that don't have as much. So that's my favorite way. Anything to do with kids, I'm probably hooked and will donate money to it.
Robert, amazing show. It's just incredible. I hope the listeners have listened closely and have taken notes. It doesn't matter if you are just getting started in the syndication business and developing relationships with your first few investors, or if you have hundreds of investors or thousands on your list. Man, you have learned a lot today from Robert. Thank you so much, Robert. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Whitney. It was a pleasure. I'm glad that I could add some value. That's what I'm always looking to do. The easiest way to reach me, and you can connect with me on call, text, email, or any social media that you'd like to connect on, is IamRob360.com.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.